Xiaomi has a history of building fantastic wired headphones that are fantastic bang for the buck at the fraction of a cost of the big players. Now it has ventured into the Bluetooth market with the Mi Sports Bluetooth headphones. So how well does it compare to its wired brothers? And is it any good? Well, on today's Mi Access, we'll be taking a look at the Mi Sports Bluetooth headphones. Welcome to the Access Project. This video is brought to you by the Xiaomi MC AliExpress store. If you're looking to buy some Xiaomi devices, be it for yourself or in wholesale, check them out at the link below. The design of the black Mi Sports Bluetooth headphones is a classic. The main part of the device is covered with a brushed metal and a jewel-like border, while the casing and the cable is a combination of rubber and plastic. It sounds like I'm describing a Mi Band that I put in my ear. Anyway, it still has a premium feel with the metal while still remaining light, and in typical Xiaomi style, branding is limited to a small paper flap on the cable which you can easily, and should, cut off. On the right side of the headphones, there's a protruding up and down volume control that can be easily felt, which also can be used for going to the next or previous track with a long press, and a rubber flap that covers a micro USB port for charging. The surface of the headphone also has a hidden LED light to check if the device is on, and battery status-ish. Nothing much on the left side, but each side of the headphones have an indented letter on the back to differentiate between the right and the left. Discreetness is not exactly this headphone's forte, as the earphones are a bit on the larger side, but for good reason that we'll cover later. Moving on to the grey cable, it's decently long with a small mic and single button combination module on the right portion of the cable, and a clip to shorten and extend the cable accordingly. Do note that the clip is not permanently connected to the cable, and can come out. Its weight is very well balanced though, as there's no heavy parts on the cable itself, and everything is well balanced between the left and the right headphone. Specs wise, it's actually quite decently packed. You have 5 silicone ear tips in the box itself, you have Bluetooth 4.1 and aptX support, and the ability to connect to 2 devices at the same time. You have a 10-meter range and a battery that is rated at 100 mAh, which is supposed to give you 7 hours of continuous playback according to Xiaomi. They also advertise having very long standby battery life. So from a specs perspective, it seems quite good. But of course, specs are just one part of the equation. How well does it fare? So the aptX codec works great, which is a codec that provides higher quality sound than a typical Bluetooth SBC compression. Running a custom ROM with aptX enabled on my Redmi Note 3, I do find it sounding a bit more detailed with the Redmi Note 3 with aptX compared to with my Redmi Note 4, which does not support aptX because stock MIUI doesn't support it. The 10-meter range that they advertise is accurate in my testing. Anything further than that though, you will get cutouts. And even within 10 meters, I do find the audio cutting out a bit more than I would like. Within hand range, it's typically quite fine. I don't get that many cutouts, if at all, over an hour or so. But if it's slightly further, I do get cuts out every few minutes or so, which is kind of annoying. It's not noticeable for things like podcasts, but it's definitely noticeable for things like music. Battery life though is pretty awesome. I do not get the 7 hours of rated continuous playback that they claim, though I do get quite close at about 6.5 hours, and what I'll consider a normal listening range for an outdoor scenario with the aptX codec on my Redmi Note 3. And standby battery life, it's great. You can basically leave it connected with your phone for very long periods of time and you'll be fine. My realistic example is that I listen to about 2 to 4 hours of podcasts and music every day on my phone with the Bluetooth headphones, and I generally leave it on standby connected to the device for the whole day. And generally I can get about 2 to 3 days depending on how heavy I'm using it. If I'm really using it very heavily, I might run out at the end of the day, but generally, if I charge it at the beginning or the previous day, I never run out. So in terms of battery life, I'm pretty happy. And I'm willing to sacrifice the slightly bigger footprint for that battery life. Xiaomi claims that a 10-minute charge is enough to give you about an hour of listening time, and Xiaomi claims that an hour is good enough to top it up to the max. I found that it was about 1.5 hours, though at the end of the charge, it was topping up really slowly due to the nature of how these batteries work. So not too bad, but not exactly accurate to what they say. Do note that you cannot use the device while it's charging. The moment you plug the device into a charger, it will shut off and go into charging mode, and you can't get it out without unplugging the cable. But here's what you all want to know: how does it sound? Now, of course, expectations within this price range. Details are good, but they're not as good as the hybrids that Xiaomi makes. The default in-ears give everything a somewhat poppy and airy sound, but bass is not great, and neither is the isolation. Before you ask, I did try all 5 tips, didn't find any that fit me that well. Though that being said, the smallest 2 tips are actually meant to convert the in-ears into this open-ear earphones, which is very nice if you're outside where you need to watch for traffic and stuff like this. It's not very dynamic though, and soundstage is pretty poor. It sounds as if everyone is within the same distance of you when you listen to music. And honestly, I didn't really like the sound that came out of the included tips. There is just not enough bass, and the vocals just sound off to me. And I can't put a finger why. That being said, I swapped the tips for the one that came with my 29 RMB Pistons Basic, and I do find it sounding a lot better. Isolation is better with the thicker tips, and because of the better isolation, I do find bass a lot better. The highs aren't as nice and crisp sounding, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make for that better bass. Though that being said, soundstage is still not that great. So yeah, it's definitely not good as a wired pair, and the cutting out is disappointing, but it's still not too shabby. Outside of the cutting issue, I did not have any other issues with latency or anything of that sort. The latency was actually good enough for me to do editing on. And I had absolutely no problem with the volume. It can get surprisingly loud. I personally found that the 30% range was a good volume for loud outdoors use. But before we leave this discussion and go on to talking about value, I really need to cover something else first. For a company that releases a bunch of smart products with a bunch of customization, options, and generally a good fit into their Mi ecosystem, this pair of headphones just seems off. Starting off with the aptX support. So this Bluetooth headphones, like I said before, does support aptX, which is very nice. It's a good codec. Good on you, Xiaomi, for using it. Don't know why you don't advertise it on anywhere except the manual. Xiaomi's phones don't support aptX, which is confusing. Where's the integration here? Additionally, it's not uncommon for Bluetooth headphones to have some sort of companion app so that you can configure some settings for it, set equalizers, do firmware updates, checking for estimated listening time left, and things of this nature. The Bluetooth headphones has none of this, which is kind of disappointing. A firmware update might be able to fix all the cutting out issues that I experienced, and settings to configure it would be nice, especially considering that these headphones only speak to you vocal instructions in Chinese, with no way to configure it for anything else, which is obviously not so good for people who don't speak Chinese. And important prompts like pairing mode or battery life is low might be missed. And speaking about battery life, while we don't have a companion app to check the battery, it does allow you to check the battery through whatever Bluetooth API that allows you to see it on your phone. So it's not all gone there. But unfortunately, these values are very vague. Full, half full, and I am going to die. So with all this stuff being said, it really seems like the Mi Sports Bluetooth headphones is just a somewhat decent pair of headphones with good battery life. It doesn't really seem outstanding or special. And here's the part where we come back to the value equation. Well, it's definitely a decent pair if design, battery life, and price is a concern for you. But other than that, sound quality is pretty average in my opinion, and the lack of much smartness considering it's a product from Xiaomi is disappointing. Or maybe my expectations are just a tad bit high. I mean, it is $23 and it's not magic. The Bluetooth internals do cost money, so they'll obviously not be as good as an equivalently priced wired pair or even a slightly lower price wired pair. So for that price, I guess it's quite good, especially if you're not that picky about sound quality and are just using it to watch YouTube videos like this or maybe even podcasts. So So thank you guys so much for watching this review of the Mi Sports Bluetooth headphones. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you to the Xiaomi MC AliExpress store for making this video possible. If you want to get one of your own, or you want to buy it in wholesale or other Xiaomi products in wholesale, then check out the link down in the description below. Thank you guys so much for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time whenever I do release a video, which is not that common. Hopefully trying to get better at that.